Good evening. My name is Dr. Jim Tumlin, and I'm the president of the Faith and Science Lecture Forum. And on behalf of the Faith and Science Lecture Forum, we'd like to welcome you to tonight's debate. For many of us, the first time that we understood the awesome expanse of the universe, the indescribable power of the sun, or the breathtaking complexity and beauty of a single cell, we were driven by a deep desire to know and to be known by the creator of all of this splendor. As the Apostle Paul put it, for since the foundation and the creation of the world, his invisible attributes have been known by that which is made, even his Godhead and his eternal power. For many others, however, the universe and all that it contains, while amazing, is the product of mere chance, a random collection of molecules that ultimately does not point toward the hand of a creator, but in fact has no meaning at all. As the famous Harvard paleontologist George Simpson put it, man is the product of a random and purposeless process that never had him in mind. As our knowledge of science has increased over the years, many of us have asked the question, did God create us in all that is seen, in him and through him? Or have we, by an innate fear or a need for significance and purpose, created God? Tonight we're going to address that question, a question that for most of us is most likely the most important question you will ever ask. Does God exist? And to do that in a thoughtful and rigorous manner, the Faith and Science Lecture Forum has invited Mr. William F. Buckley to moderate tonight's debate. Mr. Buckley was born in 1925 in New York City. He is a widely acknowledged author and lecturer. He is the recipient of over 38 honorary degrees from universities across the country, including the Presidential Medal of Honor in 1991. His recent book, Nearer My God, is a brilliant treatise of his own journey toward faith and ultimately underscores his ability to moderate religious lectures. And would you please welcome with me Mr. William F. Buckley.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm happy to be a witness to the forthcoming exchange. I'm not renowned as a moderator, and wonder at the confidence of Dr. Tumlin in nominating me to moderate this titanic struggle. I will, of course, attempt to be scrupulously fair. I do this for professional reasons, but there is the further reason that to attempt to block either of the protagonists in pursuit of their arguments would betray my utter innocence of scientific abstractions, the mention of which prompts me to urge the eminent scientists, philosophers here, to talk to us, please, and to remember the gentle benefits of the idiomatic mode. We are gathered together tonight in an effort to communicate with one another, and to do this requires that we have a continuing idea of what it is that we're talking about. As you are aware, the argument is over whether the evidence for and against the existence of God ultimately prevails. Whether the preponderance of evidence argues the existence of God. Professor William Lane Craig, believing, as he does, that it does prevail. Dr. Craig returned from a ministry in Belgium, resides in Atlanta, and continues to work in his various campuses. He received his doctorate in philosophy from the University of Birmingham, and a second doctorate in theology from the University of Munich. He has published an astonishing 89 papers in peer-reviewed journals. His latest book is called Reasonable Faith, Christian Truth and Apologetics. On the side of the devil is Peter Atkins. Dr. Atkins' doctorate is in physical chemistry from Lincoln College at Oxford. He also is a prodigious writer, having published 36 peer-reviewed articles, many of them designed to undermine a belief in a divine creator. He is an eloquent and learned advocate. Dr. Atkins has also done considerable work on his ministry over radio and television. The format calls for initial statements by the two contenders of 18 minutes each. They will be followed by 9-minute rebuttals. Now, I'm not going to pull a lever and cause the speakers to disappear into the bowels of the earth if they go 5 seconds over their allotted period, but if they do go a half-minute over, I will make my impatient presence, our presence, felt. So I do urge them to keep their eyes on the clock and urge you to pay close attention to them. Please proceed.
Good evening. I want to begin by thanking the Faith and Science Lecture Forum for inviting me to participate in tonight's debate, and I'm delighted that you have come out on a stormy evening to think about this most important of questions with us tonight. Now, in tonight's debate, we've been asked to address two basic questions. One, what is the evidence for the existence of God? And two, what is the evidence against the existence of God? Now, with respect to that second question, I'll leave it up to Dr. Atkins to present the evidence against God's existence. But notice that atheists have tried for centuries to disprove the existence of God, but no one's ever been able to come up with a successful argument. So rather than attack straw men, I'll just wait to hear Dr. Atkins' answer to the following question. What good evidence is there to think that God does not exist? So let's turn to that first question. What good evidence is there to think that God does exist? I believe that there are many reasons for the existence of God, but due to limits of time, I'm going to restrict myself to sketching briefly 5 reasons why I think God exists. Now, in all of our reasoning, we have to be careful to follow the basic rules of logic, which have governed all valid reasoning since Aristotle. Number one, then, the origin of the universe. Have you ever asked yourself where the universe came from? Why everything exists instead of just nothing? Typically, atheists have said that the universe is just eternal and uncaused. But the astrophysical evidence indicates that the universe began to exist in a great explosion called the Big Bang 15 billion years ago. Most laymen do not appreciate that not only were all matter and energy created in that event, but physical space and time themselves. This is of utmost importance, for it implies, as the Cambridge astronomer Fred Hoyle points out, that the Big Bang theory requires the creation of the universe from nothing. Now, this tends to be very awkward for the atheist. For as Anthony Kenny of Oxford University urges, a proponent of the Big Bang theory, at least if he is an atheist, must believe that the universe came from nothing and by nothing. But surely that doesn't make sense. Out of nothing, nothing comes. So where did the universe come from? Why does the universe exist instead of just nothing? There must have been a cause which brought the universe into being. We can summarize our argument thus far as follows. Premise 1, whatever begins to exist has a cause. 2, the universe began to exist. 3, therefore, the universe has a cause. Now, from the very nature of the case as the cause of space and time, this cause must be an uncaused, changeless, timeless, and immaterial being of unimaginable power which created the universe. It must be timeless and therefore changeless because it created time, because it also created space. It must transcend space as well, and therefore be immaterial, not physical. Moreover, I would argue, it must also be personal. For a changeless, impersonal cause can never exist without its effect. If the changeless, impersonal conditions for an effect are timelessly present, then their effect must be timelessly present as well. For example, the cause of water's freezing is the temperature being below 0 degrees centigrade. If the temperature were below 0 from eternity, then any water around would be frozen from eternity. It would be impossible for the water to just begin to freeze a finite time ago. The only way for the cause to be timeless and for the effect to begin a finite time ago is for the cause to be a personal agent who freely chooses to create a new effect without any prior determining conditions. For example, a man sitting from eternity could freely will to stand up, and thus you would have a new effect arise from an eternal cause. And thus we are brought not merely to a transcendent cause of the universe, but to its personal creator. In his book, The Creation, Dr. Atkins struggles mightily to explain how the universe could come into existence uncaused out of nothing. But in the end, he finds himself trapped in self-contradiction. He states, "Now we go back in time beyond the moment of creation to when there was no time and to where there was no space. At this time before time, he imagines a swirling dust of mathematical points which recombine again and again and again, and finally come by trial and error to form our space-time universe." Now, it needs to be honestly said that this is not a scientific hypothesis. It is pop metaphysics, and of the worst kind, for it's obviously self-contradictory, since it assumes time and space in order to explain the origin of time and space. As the scientist David Park writes, "It is deceptively easy to imagine events before the Big Bang, but in physics there is no way to make sense of these imaginings." As if this were not bad enough, Dr. Atkins compounds the problem by asking where the mathematical points came from. His answer? Time brought the points into being, and the points brought time into being. This is like saying the chicken brought the egg into being, and the egg brought the chicken into being. It's no wonder that in his review of Dr. Atkins' book in the Times Literary Supplement, the philosopher John Leslie asks incredulously, how could such nonsense have been churned out by the author of a superb textbook like physical chemistry? In fact, Dr. Atkins' Oxford University colleague, Keith Ward, in his book, God, Chance, and Necessity, points out no less than 7 such logical fallacies in Dr. Atkins' scenario. Ward concludes that it is, quote, blatantly self-contradictory and so cannot be true. By contrast, the view that Christian theists have always held, that there is a personal creator of the universe, is not only logically consistent, but it also follows logically from the premises that I have laid out.